Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the Democrats trot out Joe Biden on The View, and it goes about as well as you'd expect. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
Are you f***ing nuts?
We have a new pope, and he's American, and he's from Chicago. His name was Robert Prevost, and he was born in 1955 in Chicago, Illinois. He's taken on the name Pope Leo XIV. He was elected to the papal seat on Thursday, the second day of the papal conclave's deliberations. Now, for me, I don't know a lot about Catholicism. I don't want to insult anybody's religion by speaking incorrectly about it, but it has been glorious for the memes, I will say. It really has been. People have been hesitant to have an American pope because they were worried it would bring in American politics. And right away, Turning Point USA pulled up his voting record. You know how I tell you all the time your voting record is not secret and plenty of people have access to this? So according to Turning Point USA, he's a registered Republican who has voted in Republican primaries when not living abroad. And he's very, very pro-life. Oh, a Catholic who's pro-life. Go figure. Now, the problem has been is that everybody's trying to portray him however they want, excuse me. He's got a Twitter account. That's right. The Pope had a Twitter account. And on his Twitter account, he talked about something he didn't like with J.D. Vance, talked about something he didn't like about George Floyd. So people are reading into this. I saw MAGA originally saying he's bad because he doesn't like J.D. Vance. And he
woke
said
Pope.
this thing.
Woke Pope.
Yeah, woke Pope. That was the first thing we saw. And then Turning Point USA comes out with the pro-life data, and immediately it's, oh, we like this guy.
Not woke.
Not woke.
Pope.
No woke Pope. Right?
Woke Pope.
Exactly. So, guys, take whatever you want from it. Why don't we give him a chance and see how it goes before jumping to conclusions? Me personally, I wish that Saturday Night Live was still good or had a sense of humor or had some good writers. You know what the best thing they could do this weekend would be? Bring on the sports guys from the 1990s. You know, the guys who sit around going, da, Bears, da, Bears, da, Bears, da, Bears. So I want you to imagine, da, Pope, da, Pope, da, Pope, da, Pope. They would be doing that. And then you would have the Pope come in, and he'd be wearing all his robes with a Bears jersey over it. And he'd have the mustache and the sunglasses. They'd be playing the Pope, and he'd go, all right, Pope, who do you like for the Super Bowl this year? And he would be like, well, I just spoke to God. And his name is Mike Ditka. Ditka is God. Like, can you imagine how funny that would be? I saw T-shirts going around saying "Da Pope" on them. That would be great. If only Saturday Night Live still had a sense of humor. You know what would be even better? If today, out in the courtyard, outside the Basilica, outside the Vatican, if they all of a sudden dim the lights, put on the spotlights, and all of a sudden the music from the Bulls entry came on as he's walking on out there, give him a real Chicago entrance like the Bulls in the 1990s, you know, the Alan Parsons Project music. That would be epic. That's what you need to do. Some people already did it over on Twitter. I can't take credit for that one. I will take credit for the sports guys one. I'm watching this whole thing today, and it doesn't mean a lot to me, but for some of you, it means a lot. So, you want to tell me your thoughts on the Pope, you give us a call, 206-421-5757, or you text us at 206-421-5757. In fact, our friend Jeff Pogela from Northwest News Radio did an interview with a local bishop who knows the Pope. That's going to be out this weekend on the Politicast. And I had some questions I gave Jeff because I'm curious, does the Pope just throw his whole life away? I don't think they flew to Rome with their stuff. Do they go back and get it like a president and move him into the Vatican, or does he just give all that up and he never sees that stuff again? Does he get to hang out with his friends when he goes back to Chicago?
He's got a new name.
Right.
They put him in like Pope Protection Program. He's a different dude now. You might even say he's transitioned.
Exactly right. Good point there, Mike. Very good. I have questions about all this. So that's why Jeff Pogel is going to have that for you this weekend on the Politicast. Switching gears over to what's going on back in the United States for a second, as much fun as everybody's had with this whole thing. So let's back up and talk about how last night on MSNBC, this is just delicious, Jen Psaki opened with this.
So it's been more than a month, if you can believe it, since Donald Trump announced his sweeping and pretty ridiculous tariffs. But Mr. Art of the Deal, as he calls himself, has not yet struck a single trade deal, not a single one, with any single country.
Bad timing there, Jen. Really, really, really bad timing. Why? Because this morning, President Trump announced this.
This morning, I'm thrilled to announce that we have reached a breakthrough trade deal with the United Kingdom. Incredible country. Today is a victory day for World War II. We won the war together exactly 80 years ago, so there could be no more perfect morning to reach this historic agreement. And it's beautiful weather out. I will tell you that, Keir. Beautiful weather. It's so perfect outside. But it's really, in particular, the agreement with one of our closest and most cherished allies. And we're so happy that that's the way it worked out. I want to thank Prime Minister Starmer and his very talented team for their outstanding work and partnership. Today's agreement with the UK is the first in a series of agreements on trade that my administration has been negotiating over the past 4 weeks. With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade.
So, this is what I have been talking about for 4 months now, right, Mike? I said if you use the tariffs to get better trade deals, then that's a good thing, a very good thing. If you're just doing this to pay off the debt or whatever else, that's not actually going to solve anything. Stock market, of course, went skyrocketing on this because they assume there's more deals coming behind it. The deal, according to Fox Business, will see lower tariffs as well as reduced non-tariff barriers on a number of goods, including agriculture products, through the basic 10% tariff rate the Trump administration previously imposed will remain in place. The White House said the deal will expand U.S. market access in the UK by $5 billion, including $250 million for agricultural products like beef. The U.S. and the UK governments also committed to working to enhance industrial and the agriculture market access. Now, here's something else. As part of the deal, the UK just spent billions of dollars on Boeing airplanes. We're going to have Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney engines coming in. It's going to be great. This is the kind of trade deals we want. And if it keeps going forward like this, Donald Trump will once again prove all his critics wrong. Now, the question is he following Navarro or is he following Scott Bessent? This seems more like the Scott Bessent approach. Navarro seems to be like, let's make as much money as we can off these tariffs. Scott Bessent says use them as leverage. If he's listening to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, everything's going to be fine. If he's listening to Peter Navarro, who I understand is out there doing victory laps on this today, I don't think this is him because this isn't his trade policy. If we're following him, things ain't going to be that great. But this is a huge sign, a great sign, and hopefully more are coming. But I want you to listen to this for a second. Let's take us for a minute. We were very clear during the Biden administration that we wanted them to succeed in making America better. Not their version of America. We just wanted America to get better. But the second they proved that they couldn't do it, not that we were ever optimistic that they would, but at the same time, we should want the best for our country, no matter who the president was. And what upset us most about the Biden administration, the Obama administration, is they were making our country actively worse. That's the difference between us and the far left radicals. I want you to listen to how Morning Joe reported on this trade deal. Everybody should be excited about this. This is win, win, win. But MSNBC is so biased. Listen, they report it like it's a bad thing.
You look for what's most likely. Most likely those trade deals are going to come from leaders that he's more comfortable with. And he certainly, again, says he's very comfortable with Keir Starmer.
Yeah, no question there. For President Trump, diplomacy is very personal. I mean, there's a degree of that for most presidents, but this one in particular, it's really whether or not he likes you. We know there have been foreign leaders he very much did not like. He did not care for Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada. But this is going to be a political win for the White House, Mika. President Trump up very early this morning, posting around 5:30 in the morning. We've heard from him a couple times already today about this. They're going to have an event at 10 o'clock. He's going to hold a news conference along with it. This is going to be something that they recognize. White House aides have told me for a while. It's been turbulent since so-called Liberation Day. They've seen the markets bounce back some, but there's a lot of economic worries. They needed to start delivering deals. This is the first.
Don't they sound sad in reporting that? Like, yeah, they got the trade deals, and they really needed this, and this is going to help them out, and we were hoping it was going the other way. By the way, what's wrong with negotiating with your friends? So right now I'm trying to sell my truck. I'm trying to sell my Silverado. And before I go through a broker, or before I go through any dealerships, of course you talk to your friends first. You say, what am I going to work out? Lucky for me, I got my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, who I'm going to take the thing to because none of my friends, we couldn't make a deal together. Okay, fine. So I'm going to go to my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. They're going to take care of me. No problem. But you go to your friends first. It's no problem. And the people over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram are like family, are like friends to us now. But I spoke to a few friends, and you know what? What's the difference between that and Donald Trump? Donald Trump says, who can we make the deals with first? Let's go to our friends. Let's do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's going to be easier to do it. And you know you're coming from a place of good. And of course, you're going to be able to negotiate when you're friendly. That's what the left doesn't understand about Donald Trump. Rather than Joe Biden, who refused to meet with Putin, Donald Trump meeting with Putin might actually stop this thing. They have a relationship. Joe Biden just demonizing the guy all the time? Yeah, there are terrible dictators, and sometimes you have to meet with terrible dictators to get a deal. Sometimes you have to do that. Putin didn't invade Ukraine while Trump was in office. He did it during Obama. He did it during Biden. When Trump went to North Korea, he spoke to the Rocket Man. He insulted him when he wasn't there, but he spoke to him. Tried to make a deal, tried to make some kind of peace. You have to do that before you say, okay, we just can't work with this guy anymore, like what's happening right now with Iran, which seems to be the direction we're going in with Iran. But here's something else. MSNBC is criticizing everything. They're trying to downplay this whole deal.
This is relatively low-hanging fruit. If you can't get a trade deal with the longest-standing and loyalist United States ally anywhere in the world over generations, you're going to be in trouble when you're dealing with some of the more obstreperous countries around the world, the ones that are more willing to resist your entreaties.
Oh, it's just low-hanging fruit, right? Those are the easiest ones to negotiate. Why are you criticizing that? You know what else was low-hanging fruit? The Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords, it was, we can't get peace in this area. Let's go after the people that don't really have beef with Israel. Let's go after the people that don't really hate the Jews. And that's how they made all the trade deals, and that's how they made all the peace deals, eventually getting a peace deal with the Emirates, which is paving the way to Saudi Arabia. And as soon as you do that, you have peace in the Middle East. That's what you have. There's nothing wrong. Why wouldn't you go after easy stuff first? Anybody here ever play video games? Do you start at the last level? No. You start at the easy one, like Mario 1, right? Real easy, jump over a couple turtles, get a star, hit the flag. Then you go down into the sewers. Then you're back up to the treetops. Then it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. What's wrong with low-hanging fruit? You guys are making this seem like this is the worst thing that ever happened. And it's bad for them because now the stock market's going up. It's bad for them because now the economy's looking good, especially if more trade deals are announced. And here's something else, my friends. China. Let's consider them the, what's his face? Koopa? King Koopa. King Koopa of the Mario world. China's going to be the hardest trade deal to negotiate. It really, really is. Because they really don't want to negotiate a trade deal, but they kind of need to negotiate a trade deal. They're already saying they've set a date with the United States to start negotiations. Now, that's like saying, hey, I got her phone number. How do you like them apples? You haven't actually had the date yet, but at least you got the phone number, right? It's a step in the right direction. So, just a couple days ago, The press was asking Donald Trump about how things are standing with China.
Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
And guess what? As soon as they heard that, what are they now talking about? They're now talking about a date.
China said the U.S. initiated the trade talks this weekend and that its position hasn't changed. Are you still confident you can reach a deal with China?
They said we initiated? Well, I think they ought to go back and study their files. Okay? I do think that.
Everybody's trying to save face right now. It's who came up with this thing, who wants to meet. I don't care as long as there's a deal. Does it really matter? China takes these things very personally. They want to make sure there is. But Donald Trump said this just a couple days ago, knowing what was on the horizon.
Just to finish, we also have a situation, because everyone says, when are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market. So we can just sit down, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts. But J.D. will be there, and Marco, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say, not good, we're not going to do it. And I said, that's okay, you don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right, that maybe we were a little bit wrong, so we'll adjust it. And then you people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down, and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? When? It's very simple. We're going to say, in some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop your tariffs. I mean, India, as an example, has one of the highest tariffs in the world. We're not going to put up with that. And they've agreed already to drop it. They'll drop it to nothing. They've already agreed. They would have never done that for anybody else but me. So we're going to put down some numbers, and we're going to say our country is open for business. And they're going to come in, and they're going to pay for the privilege of being able to shop in the United States of America. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I wish they'd stop asking, how many deals are you signing this week? Because one day we'll come and we'll give you 100 deals. And they don't have to sign. All they have to do is say, oh, we'll start sending our ships right now to pick up whatever we want or to bring whatever we want. It's very, very simple. And I think my people haven't made it clear. We will sign some deals. But much bigger than that is we're going to put down the price that people are going to have to pay to shop in the United States. Think of us as a super luxury store, a store that has the goods. You're going to come and you're going to pay a price, and we're going to give you a very good price. We're going to make very good deals. And in some cases, we'll adjust. But that's where it is.
So this is good news right now. This is good news. And anybody who loves this country should be happy about this. The economy growing is a good thing. Why were we worried about the Inflation Reduction Act? Because we knew it would be a bad thing. Wall Street clearly likes this trade deal. The economy clearly likes this trade deal. Everybody should want this to happen. Now, can we get the other ones? And I know everybody's saying, why hasn't it been done yet? Because we're all so hardwired into Donald Trump moving quickly and getting things done fast. He still has to work with these other countries, and they have to get the things they want as well. It's going to take time. But this is a welcome step, a positive step in the right direction. Now, my friends, where things may be going the wrong direction is here in Washington, where the Supreme Court of Washington has upheld a ban on high-capacity magazines, which is be sure to be overturned by the Supreme Court. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Remember that story about the fugitive who escaped custody at SeaTac Airport over the weekend? They still haven't found the guy. Mike had a theory on why, because the guy fled via the light rail, but he's out in Redmond, and nobody else is on the light rail, so they don't know he's there. Just going back and forth between, like, the 3 stops. That's what it is. Just hiding out there. Nobody's on the Redmond light rail. Well, now new video has surfaced that shows the moment he escaped custody at an airline ticket counter at SeaTac. You see this dude pushing people out of the way, and it is such a movie moment when whoever is escorting him tears after him, also shoving people out of the way. You know, there's the 2 kind of cops in the movies. There's the ones who are like, get out of the way, and pushing people out of the way. And then there's the other ones who are like Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I'm so sorry. That's the only 2 ways it goes in the movies. So this video is something, but how is this guy still on the loose here in Washington? How have we not found this guy? Cedric T. Stevenson was under the custody of a prisoner transport company at the time of his escape, which was responsible for taking him to Bowling Green, Kentucky, in connection with several warrants. Around 11 a.m. Sunday, the transport agent and Stevenson were standing at a ticket counter when the agent turned his head and Stevenson took off running. It shows the moment where the agents give chase but collides with a woman who is in the ticketing area, and both fall to the ground. Well, if you want to know how he got away, that's how he got away. Made it for the light rail and then took off. That was it. Gone. Boom. Out of here. And with fugitives like that on the loose in Washington, you want to be able to protect yourself. And people always say, who don't know guns at all, what do you need a high-capacity magazine for? Have you ever seen any of the Lethal Weapon movies? Any of them? Most people don't shoot like Mel Gibson in the Lethal Weapon movies, even people who are very well trained. 10 shots, 10 bullets, he's done. He killed 10 guys like that, right? Yeah, you ever seen the movie Last Action Hero, where they make jokes about all this stuff? Somebody told me I have to go back and do a rewatch of The Last Action Hero. I remember hating that movie, and somebody said I'll appreciate it more now.
That person was me.
It was you. You're not the only one. You and my brother, by the way.
Yeah. It was ahead of its time. We weren't ready for it.
I got you.
If you watch it back through this contemporary, postmodern, meta humor lens, you'll get way more out of it.
I got you. So, you know,
and the
that
soundtrack rocks. One of the best of the 90s.
I'll go check it out again. But, you know, it's that I love the part at the end. He's dying. Quick, we have to get him back into the movie. Oh, it's just a flesh wound. He's perfectly fine. When somebody's coming into your house, one, you're in a high adrenaline situation. Now, anytime anybody who's been shopping for a firearm, they always ask you, a good firearm gunsmith, salesman, anything will talk to you and say, what are you using it for? Are you using it for home protection? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Do you live alone? And then you buy the appropriate weapon. You buy the appropriate ammunition. You buy the appropriate stuff because they say you're going to be in a high-pressure environment. And you don't want to hit your kids. You don't want to actually go through a wall. All these kind of discussions. But the reason you need more bullets is because what? You want to reload when you got some psycho in your house? Of course not. So banning high-capacity magazines, the criminals aren't going to listen to it. What do we find all the time? In fact, just a couple days ago, they had that massive drug bust here, and when they find the firearms that are illegally obtained, because these laws don't do anything, what do they always find? High-capacity magazines. So the Washington State Supreme Court upheld the state's ban on large-capacity magazines on Thursday, saying that the state can regulate magazines without infringing on the constitutional right to bear arms. Really? Really? This is going to get shot down at the Supreme Court, assuming they take it on. Assuming they take it on, this is going to get shot down in 2 seconds. Hey, who's one of the people who supported this thing? Wasn't it Tara Simmons? You know, the person who's an ex-con who was out at the shooting range after banning all these weapons, and the one who then says, well, I'm a woman, I need it for protection. There's some video that has surfaced of her at the shooting range now.
You got it?
How'd that feel?
Woo! That was cool. Woo! First time. I don't even know if I hit the thing, but did I hit the target prompt?
I don't know. I wasn't watching.
Yay!
Yay! say rules for thee, but not for me. That's right. She is the one who worked through the legislature to get felons to get their weapons rights reinstated, their firearms rights reinstated. And then, in addition to that, this is the woman who's trying to ban everything for all of us, including AR-15s and high-capacity magazines. And what was she shooting in the pictures? An AR-15 with a high-capacity magazine. If criminals did not have criminals, Democrats, criminals. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they would have no standards at all. Speaking of Democrats, so Kash Patel was testifying in front of Congress the other day, and Patty Murray was the one questioning her. This did not go well for Patty Murray.
Gang cases, 3,000 cases against violent
well, that's not my question. We know that you...
Well, you asked if I was weaponizing the FBI, and I am not. I'm giving you the hard, concrete examples of the men and women putting handcuffs on bad people, doing harm to our children and innocent Americans. I do not see weaponization.
But you have placed on leave FBI employees responsible for the investigation of January 6th. That sounds political to me.
I have not placed anyone on leave who has not violated their ethical obligation or their oath to the Constitution.
So if they were investigating January 6th, you believe they were violating an ethical obligation?
Nope. I think the common theme here is you putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to tolerate it, nor will the men and women of the FBI.
Well, you did place on leave an analyst responsible for investigating Russia's meddling in the 2016 election. Is that politicization?
Hang on a second. Hang on. So let's back up a second here. Why didn't you name the specific people for January 6th, or did he just debunk your narrative? So now you're pivoting over to the Russia investigation. Also, wasn't that a complete BS investigation? It's okay to investigate, but at some point you should say, hey, this is flawed. Why do you keep going then?
Is that retribution?
No, not if she broke the law or the ethical guidelines. I don't know which case you're talking about, but that's the standard. And we will hold ourselves inwardly accountable. And we will not be strayed from our mission because people think we are politicizing the Bureau. If you want to talk about someone who was attacked by a weaponized Bureau, you're looking at him. And now he's the director of the FBI and he's cleaning it up.
Well, I would just say to everyone who's listening that the FBI needs to be focused on its mission to keep the entire country safe. It should not be weaponized for partisan political gain.
Oh, really? You want to tell Joe Biden that? You want to tell Hillary Clinton that? You want to tell any of the Democrats that? You want to tell Barack Obama that? It shouldn't be politicized. It shouldn't be partisan. That's exactly what he's doing, is fixing the mess you guys made. Speaking of one of the people who made this mess, Joe Biden is being trotted out on The View. And the audio, whew, it went exactly the way you'd expect it to go. We'll have that for you coming up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So as I've been saying for 4 months, the Democrats had an opportunity to hit Trump on the economy. Instead, what did they do? They got on board with an MS-13 gang member who was a wife beater, a human trafficker, and a drug dealer, and supported him. So you would think if the Democrats learned their lesson from 2024, that having the old senile man that they said was perfectly great as their spokeswoman and the woman who can't form a coherent sentence that nobody likes as their nominee, maybe we should get rid of them. I don't mean off them. I don't mean throw them in the bay or something. What I mean is stop having them do public appearances. The more public appearances they do, the worse you guys look and the more you remind everybody of why they voted for Donald Trump. And by the way, are you trying to relive the glory days of the Biden administration? I've heard people talk about the glory days of the Obama administration. I don't know what they're so happy about, but they seem to have liked it. I don't know
Obama.
I don't know what they enjoyed, but some of them did. Now, does anybody like what happened during the Biden administration? I don't think anybody does. I don't think the far left does. I don't think the right does. I don't think anybody does. So what are we going to do? We're not going to bring on Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg or any of the, I don't want to use the word superstars, AOC perhaps, any of these guys. No. We're going to trot out Joe Biden. Now, my favorite part about this interview on The View is when Joe Biden is asked about his cognitive decline, and he demonstrates his cognitive decline, and Jill Biden has to jump in and save him. Give a listen.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. Number one. Number two, think of what we were left with. We were left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started. Not since the Civil War. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. 1 million people dying.
Hang on a second. You notice how Joe Biden talks? He assumes you know what he's talking about, and he's skipping words. So tell me again about that cognitive decline.
We're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time.
You mean like forming a coherent sentence?
And so we went to work, and we got it done. And, one of the things that
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books.
Oh, here comes Jill to the rescue. She saw Joe Biden was losing it. Now here she comes.
Were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked.
Hang on a second. Everybody saw him. He's got a gajillion cameras on him when he's president. The whole country saw it. Are we really back to the narrative of behind closed doors? He's sharp. Yeah, I hear the old Pope, not the new one, the old Pope. Behind closed doors, that guy's completely with it. Very spry.
Every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone reading his briefings, working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House. Being president is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president. And if you look at things today...
Okay, who are these clapping seals? Who are these clapping seals? Nobody thinks Joe Biden's a great president. You know how I know that? Because of his poll ratings. Nobody thought he was a good president. All you clapping seals are just, yeah, we love you, woo, woo. Did they have to put on the applause sign for that one? Yeah, didn't get much better from there. He's still delusional, thinks he would have beat Donald Trump. If he had been on the ballot, I'm going to tell you something. The Democrats would have lost by more.
You had previously said that you thought that you would have won. Since then, Donald Trump won all the battleground states and made inroads with almost every major demographic, from working class voters to Hispanic men to black men. Knowing what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. A lot of people didn't show up. Number one. Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states. It was it wasn't a slam dunk, and look, every time I've been on the show, which I've been fortunate to be on more than once. Thanks for having me. Is that we talk? You guys don't focus on as much, and I think it's good on polling numbers. But let me put it this way: he's had the worst 100 days any president's ever had.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Again, with the clapping seals, the worst 100 days. Look at the border, Joe. Look at what's going on the international stage, Joe. Are you serious with this? So, you really think you would have beaten Donald Trump? How about Kamala?
But then election night came, and it was like 2016.
Whoop. Okay, cut the feed there. Don't know what happened there, but anywho, we got this thing where Joe Biden is completely delusional, completely delusional, and yet they keep parading him out. Democrats, keep doing this. You know what? Just keep doing what you are doing. You know why? Because what that's going to do is guarantee that Republicans win again and again. You want to remind everybody that you lied to the entire country, saying that this guy was with it, saying that this guy was spry, saying that this guy was sharp. You want to keep reminding everybody that you lied? Go ahead. It'll remind everybody why they voted for Republicans and Donald Trump. You keep doing this. Can't wait for 2026. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. You remember when Disney got all mad about Florida's Don't Say Gay bill? Yeah, well, it's funny because now they're opening a new theme park in a place which executes gay people. I hear them celebrating that. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So Disney announced that they're opening a new theme park in Abu Dhabi where being gay is illegal. Homosexuality is a crime. Do you guys remember how bonkers crazy Disney went over the Don't Say Gay bill, which wasn't even a Don't Say Gay bill? Basically, what the Don't Say Gay bill was, it took sex ed out of the grades kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. That's what it was. But the left said, we're going to call it the Don't Say Gay bill. And then Disney went crazy over this thing. Do you remember how crazy they went? Disney at the time owned ESPN. I believe they still do. They own ESPN. And this is what they were talking about during sporting events.
Courtney Lyle, Carolyn Peck. Now, normally at this time, we would take a look back at the first half, but there are things bigger than basketball that need to be addressed at this time. Our friends, our family, our coworkers, the players and coaches in our community are hurting right now. And at 3 o'clock, about 8 minutes ago, our LGBTQIA plus teammates at Disney asked for our solidarity and support, including our company's support, in opposition to the parental rights in education bill in the state of Florida and similar legislation across the United States.
And a threat to any human rights is a threat to all human rights. And at this time, Courtney and I, we're going to take a pause from our broadcast to show our love and support for our friends, our families, and our colleagues.
Yeah, literally doing this in the middle of a basketball game. You can hear what's going on behind them, and they're clearly reading from scripts. But this is what they did. This is the insanity that ESPN did, and you wonder why you lost a bunch of customers from Disney. What were you protesting? Parental rights. They didn't want the parents having a say in their kids' education. They didn't want the parents having a say in getting rid of hypersexualized education. Sound familiar, Washington? This is exactly what they're doing here. Parents say, we want parental rights. And what does Chris Rakedall and all the Democrats say? Nope. We can deal with your kids better than you can. Oh, and then they make it a trans thing. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with parents wanting to know what their kids are doing in school. It's that simple. Hey, Disney, where is your outrage over Abu Dhabi and their law regarding gays? You're opening an entire theme park there, a multi-billion-dollar investment. Talk about hypocrisy. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Bruce in Kirkland. Bruce, what's up?
Hey, Ari, you were talking about how disengaged Joe Biden was and how it's such a joke that they pretend like he was Mr. Energy in his White House. I don't know how they expect anybody on the West Coast to believe that. I think back to so many mornings before my coffee maker would finish brewing the first cycle, they'd already called a lid. No more news out of the White House. We're not doing anything here. It's like 6:30 our time, and Joe's all done for the day.
Yeah, it's like everything about Joe Biden and his White House was a lie. Every single thing, the auto pen, everything else. It all was. And they keep trying to gaslight us. So they trot him out on national TV to make him look spry, make him look with it, and Jill Biden has to save him? I mean, Bruce, do you regret your vote for Donald Trump?
Not one bit. And, you know, I think that they're actually doing us a favor by trotting him out, because every time people see him, everybody's starting to realize how badly they were lied to. It's making more converts.
Yep, I agree. I think a lot more people are coming around. And here's the other thing. The polls bear this out. When they keep asking people, do you regret your vote for Donald Trump? They keep saying no. They say, this is what I voted for. So what do they keep saying on the left? Is this what you voted for? Who are their political consultants? How dumb are these people? Bruce, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Here's that clip I cut off just a second ago to illustrate the point. Here's Joe Biden talking about Kamala.
But then election night came, and it was like 2016 all over again. Yeah. So why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. She is. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race.
Oh, give me a break. Enough with this nonsense. Women are elected to office all the time. And here's something else. You know that guy you used to work for who was president of the United States? Barack Obama? He was black and the country voted for him not once, but twice, even though his policies were absolute garbage. Come on, Joe Biden. Come on, man. When we come back, my friends, the latest of what's going on at the University of Washington. A lot of you have been asking about it. We have some updates for you. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the Washington Attorney General is targeting the Trump administration again, this time over EV chargers. But before we get to any of that, my friends, let's talk about what happened at Columbia yesterday, because it's very similar to what's going on at the University of Washington right now. Yesterday at Columbia University in New York, hundreds of Hamasniks showed up, stormed the Butler Library, took the thing over for a couple of hours. Now, Columbia security tried to stop them and were injured in the process, need medical attention, need to be taken to the hospital. If you are vandalizing buildings and you're injuring people, it is not a peaceful protest. It's not a peaceful protest if you're trying to break down doors and push through officers. Now, what's funny to me is they're all wrapped in their keffiyehs, and what happens is the security over at Columbia decide to do a 180 on them. What do? They lock them inside the library. They let the kids with IDs leave who are just there to study. It's in the middle of finals week. There are kids studying in the library. And what do? They said, you can't leave without showing us your ID. And they went bonkers. The Hamasniks went completely crazy. Hey, if you believe in your cause, you should be willing to give them an ID. You should be willing to take the consequences for it. You should be willing to get arrested. These kids can't even do martyrdom right. Yeah, they're vandalizing the whole library. Absolutely crazy, the stuff that they're doing. And they're losing it. Then they start saying, we're captives. Yeah, how do you think Edon Alexander, who is still in the tunnels in Gaza, feels right now after over 19 months of being a hostage? How do you think he feels? So what do? They rename the library. This is their new shtick. They rename buildings after terrorists for the 5 minutes they're there until their protests get broken up by riot police. They name it after Bassel al-Araj, who was a Palestinian terrorist who got into a gunfight with the IDF because he wanted his death to inspire an intifada, an armed uprising. His writing argued against any normalization or peace with Israel. These white kids at Columbia are idolizing a violent death cult martyr. Absolutely crazy. Now, something else, which is kind of funny to me. So you're telling me that these lunatic activists who call a library by a random name that it never had to make it seem like it belonged to the protesters, then claim victimhood because they got arrested for trying to raid and steal a building that doesn't belong to them? Oh, it really just sounds like Palestinians overall, doesn't it? Yes, really kind of does. Now, what's interesting was Columbia was trying to shut this down. It took them too long to respond, too long to call in the police, in my opinion. But this is night and day from the Columbia we saw last year, which let them camp on the quad for, I don't know, what was that, like a month and a half? Here's the new Columbia president, Claire Shipman, and her statement. Now, it's a little long, but I want you to listen to this carefully. She is clearly not a member of the right. This is clearly a college professor who grew up in the left. She's using the leftist lingo. But what's fascinating is you can still be a leftist and recognize right and wrong. Listen to her use the liberal language to call out these protesters. And that's fine. I'm fine with people having differences of opinions and politics. But listen to her do this from the liberal perspective.
Earlier today, a group of protesters occupied one of the main reading rooms in Butler Library, refusing to leave, and another group breached the front door, causing substantial chaos. All of this as the bulk of our students are working hard to prepare for exams. These actions not only represented a violation of university policies, but they also posed a serious risk to our students and campus safety. We had no choice but to ask for the assistance of the NYPD, and I'm grateful for their help and professionalism, as well as that of our public safety team. Let me be clear. What happened today, what I witnessed, was utterly unacceptable. I spent the late afternoon and evening at Butler Library as events were unfolding to understand the situation on the ground and to be able to make the best decisions possible. I arrived to see one of our public safety officers wheeled out on a gurney and another getting bandaged. As I left hours later, I walked through the reading room, one of the many jewels of Butler Library, And I saw it defaced and damaged in disturbing ways and with disturbing slogans. Violence and vandalism, hijacking a library, none of that has any place on our campus. These aren't Columbia's values. Let me be clear. Columbia unequivocally rejects anti-Semitism and all other forms of harassment and discrimination. And we certainly reject a group of students, and we don't know yet whether there were outsiders involved, closing down a library in the middle of the week before finals, forcing 900 students out of their study spaces, many leaving belongings behind. Our commitment to a safe, inclusive, and respectful campus community is unshakable, and we will continue to act decisively to uphold these values.
Now, clearly, she is not a member of the right. She's using all the leftist lingo. But see, you can be normal or have some common sense where you go a bunch of rioters, regardless of what they're representing, should not be allowed to vandalize a campus, assault security guards, and occupy a building and disrupt everybody who's there to learn. That is not a peaceful protest. First Amendment guarantees peaceful protests, not terrorists. So after this thing, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the State Department was reviewing the visa status of the trespassers and vandals who took over Columbia University's library, adding that pro-Hamas thugs are no longer welcome in our great nation. So what is he doing? He's seeing how many of them we can deport. And let's remember, they are doing that. They've detained and deported people from Colombia already, like Mahmoud Khalil. So it looks like that's what they're about to do again. So I sent an email out to the State Department, and I was asking the State Department, hey, are you doing this with all the people from the University of Washington who got arrested the other night? So what they said was, we cannot preview future visa-related decisions, which are made on a case-by-case basis based on the individual facts relevant to the case. So we cannot preview future visa-related decisions, which means that's not a no, and that's not a yes either. So the question is that exactly what they're going to be doing? They said the Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation, our citizens, by upholding the highest standards of national security and public safety through our visa process. Every prospective traveler to the United States undergoes interagency security vetting, prohibiting entry to the United States by those who might pose a threat to the U.S. national security or public safety is key to protecting the U.S. citizens at home. The Department of State will continue to work closely with the Department of Homeland Security to enforce zero tolerance for aliens in the U.S. who violate U.S. laws, threaten public safety, or in other situations where warranted. So that's not a no. It's not a yes either. So you've got 21 students who were suspended from the University of Washington last night. When we heard that announcement, we were like, yippee, woohoo, that's exciting. We were very, very excited about that. Oh, by the way, somebody slipped me their majors, by the way. Would you like to know what their majors are? We're not going to identify the students, but would you like to know what their majors are? Tell me if you think they're going to get a job out of this. I think their chances went from slim to none. Graduate student in educational leadership and policy, art, geography, education. Graduate student in education, gender, women's, and sexuality studies. There's a few of those. Communication design, communication psychology, health systems, and population health policy. That one's interesting. International studies. And then you've got two here that just don't match. Mathematics and political science. Are those people they managed to brainwash? Yeah, I don't think those kids are getting hired anytime soon. So what happens is, we've been asking if Bob Ferguson is actually going to say anything about what happened at the University of Washington. And I know we give Chris Daniels a very hard time on the show. We give Chris Daniels a very hard time. We call him Click Daniels because of all the articles about the Sonics. But Chris Daniels went to the bill signing yesterday about rent control. No other reporter asked questions. They just went along with, yeah, we're here to video this. Chris Daniels had to find Bob Ferguson and ask him these questions because Bob Ferguson will not respond to requests for comment and will not post a public statement about what happened at University of Washington, where all these Hamasniks and Antifa activists caused over $1 million in damage to a building during a violent anti-Semitic occupation. So what happens? Bob Ferguson gets asked the question, and completely blows the answer. God bless Chris Daniels.
Do you believe that that was a case of domestic terrorism? And are you concerned at all about the Department of Education and their probe into anti-Semitism at the University of Washington?
I'm happy to take your question after we take questions on the housing.
Washington Governor Bob Ferguson, initially reluctant to enter the debate about his alma mater, did say he believed the violent protesters would be held accountable.
Whether something meets the definition of domestic terrorism, I don't know exactly what that definition is, but this is obviously a serious situation.
As far as the probe from the Department of Education,
The federal government is investigating just about everybody these days, okay? So it's not especially unusual.
I don't know the definition of domestic terrorism? You were the Attorney General. You were the Attorney General. You set up this whole hate crimes task force. They have a meeting tomorrow. You don't know the definition of domestic terrorism? Would you like to know why he said that? So when they set up this hate crimes task force, when they set this thing up, they have a whole section, domestic violent extremism, in this report that they used to justify setting this thing up. The report addresses the shift from the term domestic terrorism to the term domestic violent extremism. Domestic terrorism is, quote, an undefined term in Washington state, but it is defined in federal law. You realize what that is? They're playing word games so they can make it about whoever they want. So they can use that to target conservatives. Bob Ferguson is not playing dumb. He is going along with the verbiage his task force is using to target conservatives. And that's why he doesn't want to give an answer to this question. Because if he actually answers it, according to federal guidelines, of course it was terrorism. Of course it was. They say the federal definition of DT, domestic terrorism, fails to capture the full scope of the problem Washington state faces, which includes other forms of extremist and political violence, threats, coercion, and intimidation, online disinformation, extremist recruitment, and government infiltration efforts, and the general spread of extreme white supremacist, anti-government, and other ideologies. Do you realize what this is? They want to label anything they don't like domestic violent extremism. So if Mike's recruiting for the Big Mike militia, now that is domestic violent extremism. If I'm recruiting you to be part of our audience, that's domestic violent extremism. That's what Bob Ferguson is doing. This answer is very, very similar to the amount of times he has blown this answer in the past. Do you remember when Chris Daniels, got to give him credit where credit is due. Chris Daniels asked Bob Ferguson when he was running for office at another event if he would condemn the violent anti-Semitic Gaza encampment at the University of Washington at a press conference. Here was his answer.
You're a distinguished alumni at the University of Washington. You are the top prosecutor in the state. You want to be the governor. You know what's going on at the UW over the last couple of weeks. If you're elected governor, what would you do to find a solution there to make everybody happy?
I would chat with you separately. I have a very specific focus here. I just will say, look, as a graduate, all students have the absolute right to attend classes safely and experience a campus environment safely. That's fundamental. That has to be enforced. And so, but happy to have a further conversation with you about other details. But for right now, our focus is very clear, right, on what's in front of us.
Do you remember what that press conference was about? That's what he was mad about the other Bob Fergusons who are running for office. For those of you who may have just moved here or just joined our audience, what happened was a bunch of people named Bob Ferguson registered to run for office just to mess with Bob Ferguson. And he decided he was going to weaponize the tools of government to threaten them. And he held a press conference about it. Didn't do anything to protect the Jewish students. Didn't do anything to protect the white students, Asian students, Christian students on that campus. But instead, he threatened to use the power of government to go after people whose names were legally Bob Ferguson because they stood in the way of him and the governor's office. Whoever he wants to label a domestic violent extremist. That's what he is going to do. He could have used those powers to go after the Hamasniks, but he won't. Why? because his donors are from the Council of American Islamic Relations. A lot of them are the ones who are the terrorists on campus. He'll never do anything to stop these guys. You remember Dave Reichert calling out Bob for being MIA during all of this, during one of the debates?
I'm not going to impose my religion on you, but where was Bob when we talk about DEI, when we talk about equality? Where was Bob when the ugly head of anti-Semitism raised up on the university campuses here in Washington State? Where was Bob? Where was Bob's voice? You didn't hear a peep out of Bob.
That is your time. Back to the panel, please.
Mr. Ferguson, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah. Where was Bob during all that? MIA. He comes out to use the powers of the government to go after 3 guys named Bob Ferguson because they had the misfortune of having the same name as him. But he didn't use it to stop the Antifa activists, the Hamas activists. Didn't use it at all. Bob Ferguson is a coward. I said it many, many times yesterday. And once again, not doing anything about what's going on college campuses. Bob Ferguson's not touching that. If it was a bunch of Trump supporters occupying a building, how quickly would it be until Bob Ferguson would be on that campus? Would it be minutes? Would it be seconds? Until he's having a press conference, he's ordering in the National Guard to shut it down. If it was the KKK on campus targeting black students, he'd be there in a flash. But Jewish students, nope, doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. Oh, they're Hamasniks? Doesn't care. They pay his bills. These are the people whose parents donate to his campaign. These are the people from the Council for American Islamic Relations. You know what's going on today? Today, there's a protest on campus. Antifa's already there. And you've got the other Hamasniks there. They all came out to give speeches. Why? Because they are calling for the university not to suspend the people who caused over $1 million worth of damage. Over $1 million worth of damage. They're mad at the president for finally, after 18 months since October 7th, issuing a statement condemning anti-Semitism. They're mad at her. They're mad at her. Here's what they wrote on Facebook. Kauchi's remarks condemn the occupation of the Shaban al-Dalu building. They renamed it again. They stole another building, gave it a fake name, as violent, and said this was no peaceful protest, as if the only protests that are justified are peaceful ones. No, those are the only legal ones. We believe an escalation in genocide requires an escalation in our tactics and our commitment. They're admitting what they did. The Palestinian people and their resistance, you mean Hamas, have been calling on the international community to escalate, and we are answering those calls. On behalf of Hamas, Palestinians have engaged in peaceful protests and peace deals. Which ones? Not really, which ones? They've broken every peace deal they were ever part of, and they've never had peaceful protests. Show me one. Show me one. This is the nonsense they lie about. This is their gaslighting. You know who's on campus right now? You know who gave a speech just a little while ago before we came on air? Bisan Baghdudi. Do you know who Bisan Baghdudi is? She is in charge of the Sami Dun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, which has been banned in some countries for ties to terror. They advocate for terrorists to be released from jail. Days after October 7th, she helped organize the first Hamas rally at UW after terrorists raped and tortured over 1,200 civilians and kidnapped over 250 more. She was one of the organizers behind the pro-Hamas blockade of I-5 in Seattle last year and told Como News there should be no business as usual in the face of ongoing genocide. She admitted it on TV. Her organization in 2024, that's under Joe Biden. In a joint action with Canada, the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control designated Sami Dun as a sham charity that serves as an international fundraiser for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a terrorist organization. That's who is speaking at the University of Washington today. And that's just the first video I saw before I went on air today. So who else is there? I reach out to UW for comment. There's literally terrorists on their campus. Oh, can't do anything. It's free speech. You guys didn't let Olivia Krolchek have free speech 3 months ago. You guys let Antifa and a whole bunch of activists stop her speech from happening. You guys have targeted college Republicans so many times that there had to be legal cases to force you to let them speak on campus. Yesterday, we asked a lot of you, what you think we should do at the University of Washington now that they seem to be on the right course, and every single person who said they will return to their old ways if given the chance, here's your proof that that's exactly what they would do. This is your proof right here. What happened on campus today. You're going to tell me you're going to keep those kids safe from a person who's part of a terrorist organization who's on your campus? That's not freedom of speech. That's incitement. That's what's going on at the University of Washington. They should lose every single dollar of federal funding. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Give me a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
I got breaking news, so if you want to play the breaking news, play it now, bro.
You want me to play the breaking news liner? Okay, hang on one second. I know when you tell me that, it's usually something breaking, so it better be good here, Joe. Here we go. Joining us now on the KVI studio line, our friend Transit Joe with breaking news.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
What do you got for us, Joe?
I have a statement on the King County Prosecutor's Office that was emailed to me this morning from Prosecutor Lisa Mannion and one of her PR aides. I'm not going to read the whole statement due to time, but Prosecutor Mannion had her office say there should be no tolerance for violence and if individuals damage another's property, whether that's at the University of Washington or elsewhere in King County, they should plan for prosecutors to file charges and seek restitution, end quote. However, quote, referrals for charging decisions of any type have not been sent by police investigators, end quote. Basically, the statement goes on to say that they're waiting on the UW police to conclude their investigations. The prosecutor's office is waiting for those conclusions. I'm very underwhelmed by it because it looks like they're only going to get gross misdemeanors. And to me, gross misdemeanors pretty much you can't go on the border into Canada.
Yeah, I'd say thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to reach out to the King County prosecutors as well. Thank you for doing that, Joe. Here's the thing right now is that that's insane. If UW police, so here's something interesting. When this was all happening on Monday night, I reached out to Seattle Police and the Washington State Patrol, and they both told me to reach out to UW police because they were the agency in charge. They're the ones who called for assistance. They're the ones who called for help. Why is UW not giving the information to the King County prosecutors? I think we need to cut off UW's funding right now. Joe, appreciate the tip. Appreciate you being part of the show. Yeah, go for it, buddy.
One last thing. I know I've said even to the Board of Regents, I don't want to see them defunded, but if they cannot prefer the felonies for the millions of dollars that was stolen from these students, these opportunities stolen from students, and I don't go there, but I've got a dear friend of mine whose daughter goes there.
Mm-hmm.
I want that school told in no uncertain terms that it's either A, we have a special governor or military governor, some white knight go in there and say this is how you're going to do things, and we cut off the ethnic studies, we cut off the radicalization, and we just focus on the basic scientists, or we cut them all off. We just say, sorry, you're done on federal grants, and by the way, students cannot get Pell Grants, and that's going to just bring that school down to its knees
I think
file felonies.
I think that's exactly what we have to do, Joe. I don't think they're going to learn any other way. Appreciate you being part of the show.
Sad.
Appreciate your kind words. Appreciate you being so forceful in defense of what's right. Thanks so much, Joe. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Well, the AG, the governor, they're not dealing with the stuff at University of Washington. What are they fighting? Trump, of course. Over EV chargers? We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We do feel fine, but I'll tell you something. Our Attorney General doesn't seem to be caring about what's going on at University of Washington. He released a garbage statement. Our governor doesn't care. What do they care about? Fighting Trump. It's all Trump's fault. Everything is Trump's fault. Washington State has found itself in the midst of an electrical vehicle policy contradiction that raises serious questions about the consistency and hypocrisy of its Democratic leadership's virtue signaling. On one hand, Attorney General Nick Brown is co-leading a lawsuit against the Trump administration for halting federal EV infrastructure funds. On the other hand, state lawmakers are advancing legislation that appear to penalize Tesla, a company that's critical to the very EV future the state claims to champion. Attorney General Nick Brown's lawsuit, filed Wednesday alongside 16 other Democratic attorney generals, seeks to restore more than $1 billion in electric vehicle infrastructure funding that President Donald Trump's administration has frozen. Why'd they freeze it? Well, we'll get into that in a second. Washington stands to lose over $71 million from the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which was created by the bipartisan infrastructure law passed in 2021. Trump targeted the spending after an audit showed that the former president Joe Biden's $7.5 billion investment in EV charging had only produced 7 EV charging stations in 2 years. Brown accused the Trump administration of engaging in an illegal clawback, asserting that it undermines congressional authority, jeopardizes critical economic development. He says Washingtonians are switching to electric vehicles at one of the highest rates in the nation. They deserve safe, reliable infrastructure. Then why do the feds need to pay for it? Why do the feds need to pay for it? You had gas companies that paid for gas stations because they knew it was worth it. Tesla's paying for the charging stations. Maybe some other car companies will start doing the same thing. But right now, you guys are subsidizing these things. The lawsuit reflects Washington's aggressive clean vehicle mandates, including one requiring that all new passenger cars be zero emission by 2035. And it has consistently ranked in the top 5 for EV adoption. Yet, just days after proclaiming the importance of EV infrastructure, the State House passed Substitute House Bill 2077, legislation that critics say directly targets Tesla. The bill introduces a complex set of excise taxes on zero-emission credits, which Tesla dominates. The tax structure includes all these taxes on ZEV credits, is what they're called. So they're specifically targeting Tesla. So what is it, guys? You want the electric cars or you don't want the electric cars? This is complete hypocrisy, and everybody knows it, including how Bob Ferguson would be treating a bunch of KKK members on that campus versus a whole bunch of Hamasniks on that campus. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Jason in Lacey. Jason, what's up?
Hey, so I didn't get a chance to call yesterday, but I wanted to call because I think that the funding for the colleges needed to be cut for the duration of time that they've been found to violate Title IX. And I also wanted to mention that I was gonna put a $100 bill on the fact that I bet every single one of those people that was arrested, every 100 or 21 students that was arrested was going to end up being a teacher in the next 4 or 5 years. And then you come out and you talk about today all of their degree plans, and all of their degrees are exactly what teachers get. Exactly. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm thinking, can we eliminate most of our problem if we can push some kind of legislation to minimize or block anyone with legal prosecutions that are tied to occupation and terrorism and things like that from becoming a teacher?
Here, I got something easier. I got something better, Jason. Do you know why they don't want school choice? If it's school choice, then the schools need better teachers. And they need teachers who are more qualified and teachers who are not activists. And those are the schools that are going to succeed. That's why they're so afraid of school choice, because they lose their cushy positions and their chance to brainwash kids. So right now, they allow anybody to teach, felons, you name it. I mean, that guy Ian Golash had a criminal record. If you push the school choice, that problem, like we say in Office Space, that'll just sort itself out naturally, right? That's what'll happen. Jason, appreciate the call, my man. Appreciate the humor. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, Republican leadership is calling out what's happening at the University of Washington, while the Democrats stay silent. The Senate Republican leader John Braun will join us next and also talk about whether or not we're going to get taxed up the wazoo by Fergie. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, so much is going on in Washington state, not just on a local level, but also stuff that's making national news. I want to make sure that we cover every single piece of it. Let's not forget, we got the insanity going on at the University of Washington campus, and there's more protesters out there again today. We also have the budget, which is sitting in Bob Ferguson's desk, and he claims that he's going through it, but we're worried about what he's going to sign, what he's not going to sign. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, the Republican leader in the Senate, Senator John Braun. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ari.
Such a pleasure as always. So you guys had a press conference just the other day, media availability. You guys gave a statement about how you're really encouraging Bob Ferguson not to sign this budget. Why don't you sum it up for us?
The bottom line is it continues the pattern of overspending by the Democratic majorities, overspending that we cannot afford, even with what will be roughly $13 billion in new taxes. That's billion, by far the largest tax increase in our state's history. They still rely on a couple $1 billion of budget tricks just to make the thing balance. This continues the overspending addiction that Democrats have in our state.
Do you think that there's going to be a special session if he actually starts messing with this stuff?
I'd say it's 50-50. I mean, I'm worried that what he's going to do is going to tinker around the edges and maybe veto a little bit of the spending and maybe veto a little bit of the taxes, but not really solve the problem. If that happens, I don't think we have a special session. What he needs to do is send us back to the drawing board and say, you got to get it right and you got to spend a lot less money. People of the state of Washington can't afford it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if he's going to do that to take some of the heat off some of the other problems we have. He has not spoken out publicly about what happened at the University of Washington. We're talking about over $1 million in damage from the pro-Hamas Antifa activists that were on campus. And then Chris Daniels corners him yesterday, asks him a question. He botches the answer. It's an absolute train wreck disaster, and it's embarrassing that this guy has still not said a word, not one word, about what happened at the University of Washington. Conversely, you came out with a very strong statement about it.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked that my colleagues, the governor, my legislative colleagues have just been nearly silent on this issue. And this is an absolute injustice. What they did on campus, this isn't about free speech or protests. And we support that, but this is not peaceful protest, that is. This was breaking the law, destroying property, threatening and intimidating people, bullying, all the things that Democrats say they stand against. And yet when folks who look to be politically aligned with them do this very thing, mum's the word. They don't say a word.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, let's take the Jewish angle out of this for a second. Let's take the anti-Semitic. Let's take the politics out of it. They destroyed an engineering building. So then, I mean, once you do that, once you do something like that, then you're already, you've already committed a crime. And yet the Democrats don't seem to care about that. I mean, they're the party of committing crimes.
Yeah, they're basically looking the other way. And I'm pleased at least this time when we've had destruction of property on campus, the university seems to be taking some action and actually holding folks accountable. We'll see if that pans out like it should. But the fact that our Democratic colleagues just want to ignore that and say, oh, this isn't happening right now, or not acknowledge it, not recognize it. This is political violence. This is breaking the law. This is behavior that cannot go without consequences if we want to have a safe and functioning university in Seattle.
Now, Senator, I noticed that the Republicans are speaking out about this, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank your caucus and your colleagues in the House who are Republicans for speaking out about this. But the Democrats, with the exception of Mary Leavitt, are completely silent about this. Why do you think they're so scared to talk about anti-Semitism? Why do you think they're so scared to talk about violence at the University of Washington? I think it's got to be more at this point than the violence. I mean, it's got to be more than just, oh, well, there are backers.
It's not really clear to me, frankly. I frankly talk to a lot of them privately, and they'll often thank me for standing up and for speaking out against the anti-Semitic behavior we're seeing in the University of Washington and other places. But yet they stay silent. It's kind of dumbfounding. Maybe it's there is a very aggressive, progressive left that tends to attack their own side when they don't toe the far left line. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's financial supporters. It's hard for me to tell why they don't do it. But what it is disappointing that whatever the reason is, they don't work past it and do the right thing and stand up for what's right, stand up to protect the people who are being intimidated, harassed, bullied, and all the destruction they're doing.
Senator John Braun, I do appreciate you standing with your convictions. I appreciate you standing up for the Jewish people. I appreciate you standing up for law and order. I appreciate you standing up for all the taxpayers here in Washington. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, really appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Why are we playing the Sesame Street song? Because Elmo has gotten political from his official his official LinkedIn account. Now, I thought this was a parody. I really thought this was a parody. Here's what it says. Unfortunately, Elmo was recently laid off because of federal budget cuts. Elmo worked at Sesame Street for 45 years. Elmo is sad. Elmo loved his time at Sesame Street. Elmo is going to miss his friends, Big Bird, Cookie Monster, Ernie, Bert, Abby, Grover, Count, and so many more. They made Elmo's day so much better. Elmo is looking for his next opportunity. Elmo is good at so many things like hugs. Elmo loves giving hugs. Elmo can also recognize the letter E to spell his name, feel empathy, and sing Elmo's song and ask how you are doing. Elmo is open to full-time or freelance roles. If you hear of any opportunities or want a hug, let's connect. If you want to help Elmo and his friends, please urge your local congressperson to save public media. And there's a link. Do you realize what this is? Whether this is a parody account or the official account, this is somebody trying to save NPR. This is somebody trying to save PBS. That's what this nonsense is about. Now, I assume this is a fake account. I assume this isn't real. I assume this is not officially Sesame Street. I assume this is not the Children's Television Workshop. But in case it was, I did a little Google searching thanks to my friend Grok over at Twitter. What did I find? Elmo's image on toys, clothing, books, products, and the wildly popular Tickle Me Elmo doll, introduced in 1996, is a major revenue driver. Mattel reported strong sales from Tickle Me Elmo in 2007, contributing to a fourth quarter profit of $286.4 million. Elmo's World, a Sesame Street segment, earns through licensing deals, streaming services, DVDs, YouTube advertising, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Sesame Street YouTube channel, featuring Elmo content, reportedly earned $229,000 in the last 30 days of April 2025. $229,000 in the last 30 days of April alone. A 2025 auction of Sesame Street songwriting, screenwriting royalties, including Elmo-related content, sold for $580,000. Estimates of Elmo's net worth, reflecting the brand's value, vary widely. Sources suggest figures from $100 million to hundreds of millions, driven by merchandise licensing media. One source estimated Elmo's annual revenue to be some point, this is just across social media platforms, just across that, somewhere around $300,000 on social media platforms. Let's remember, most little kids don't have social media. This is beyond insane. And yet they're trying to cry poverty over the Children's Television Workshop and all this money. Now, I'm looking at this Grok analysis, and this is just based on the easiest stuff it could find. If we did a true analysis of how much money just Elmo brings in, you're talking about in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And yet they're crying poverty over at PBS. Hundreds of millions of dollars for one character. I understand the Count may not be as fashionable as he used to be. I love the Count. He's my absolute favorite character. I love that dude. But at the same time, how much you think the rest of these guys are drawing in? How much you think Big Bird brings in? The amount of money these guys are raking in is absolutely insane. They just want more of it. Here's something else. You know what they could do with their government budget? They could just use it to advertise and advertise and advertise and advertise so they can sell more and more and more and more. As I've said, I am very, very curious if NPR actually does lose their government funding, where they're going to go in the ratings. How much money are they spending on advertising right now that other stations don't have? And are their ratings going to fall? That'll be fascinating to watch. Look, if you guys had just remained apolitical, probably nobody would be behind this. But because you got political, because you guys are biased, because you guys make things up, because you're a bunch of anti-Semites too on top of everything else, you guys have now met FAFO. That is what is happening to NPR and PBS right now. Whoever did this, I get it was a parody, this Elmo thing. I get you were trying to make a point, and the link goes to some radical site trying to get you to not defund NPR or PBS. But can you at least be realistic? You picked Elmo to do this? Of all the characters, he's probably the top earner of every single character on Sesame Street for PBS, for NPR. Guys, this is why the left always loses, because the left can't meme. Do better, guys. Do much better. When we come back, we have breaking news out of the University of Washington. We'll go tell you the latest of what we just found out during the last commercial break. You don't want to miss this, my friends. Make sure you're staying tuned. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and tickets to see Bryan Adams at Climate Pledge Arena. But before we get to any of that, got some breaking news from University of Washington right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
During the break, I looked up the definition of terrorism. This is not the breaking news part, but I want you to decide if what happened at University of Washington is terrorism because it's been officially declared as such. So terrorism is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Doesn't mention the difference between domestic or foreign. Terrorism is terrorism. And causing over $1 million in damage to a building, that's terrorism. Because they were trying to further a political goal. They don't like Boeing doing business with Israel. That's a political goal. And they caused over $1 million worth of damage. So the question is, are there going to be terror charges coming? So this press release just came out. This one here just came out. It's from the Secure Community Network. On May 5th, 2025, more than 30 protesters at the University of Washington affiliated with Students United for Palestine, Equality, and Return. That's SUPER. SUPER is the group, by the way, that was suspended for vandalizing the hub last year and causing over $50,000 in damage. Were arrested for trespassing, property destruction, disorderly conduct, and conspiracy after barricading themselves in the university's engineering building and causing over $1 million in damages. The perpetrators destroyed engineering equipment, set fire to furniture, and broke doors and windows while occupying the building. Following a review of open source intelligence by the Secure Community Network. Open source intelligence, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically anything you can Google, anything you can find on social media, anything you can find on Telegram or any of these other groups. The official safety and security organization for the Jewish community in North America's duty desk is confirming its assessment that the group's actions were inspired by a foreign terrorist entity. Now, let me tell you about the Secure Community Network because I work with them. These guys monitor chatter to know if a synagogue is going to be targeted. These guys monitor chatter to know if a school is going to be targeted. So they're monitoring this chatter, and they traced it back to a foreign terrorist organization. Organized by Super UW, the group released a manifesto shortly before its actions. The document praised the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack as a heroic victory and explicitly stated that Super's destructive building takeover was inspired by directives issued by foreign organization and published by the Sami Dun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. Does that name sound familiar to you guys at all? Do you remember Sami Dun? Sami Dun are the ones who were there right after October 7th at the University of Washington. They were there on the 12th for the first big Hamas rally. Sami Dun are the ones who took over the administration building on Hanukkah in 2024. Sami Dun are the ones who blocked I-5 on January 6, 2024. That's Sami Dun. They advocate for releasing terrorists from prison. Political ends is what they're going for through terrorizing, through targeting civilians. That's Sami Dun. Authorities have identified Sami Dun as a fundraising funnel for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is classified as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States, Canada, European Union, and others. Sami Dun has been designated a terrorist entity by Canada and by Israel. They've also been completely kicked out, exiled, excommunicated from countries in Europe. So, according to the network, this is from Michael Masters, National Director and CEO of the Secure Community Network. This was not a protest. This was deliberate, destructive, and illegal. Operation influenced, in the words of those who undertook their criminal activity, by a designated terrorist organization. By the way, I'll add something else. I saw that on Fox 13, they had a kid named Noah Waite who they were interviewing. This kid, Noah Waite. Do you know who he was? I went home and watched it. It popped up at the end of the show the other day. Remember, Mike? I started pointing at the TV going, I know that kid. I know that kid. He's the one who was selling Hamas merch on campus. He's the one who said, yeah, I know I'm giving out the stuff from Hamas, which had their logo on it from their offices. That's who this kid is. They are admitting it. They are not hiding it. They are admitting everything they do. Quote, when individuals in America are mobilized by the directives of a designated foreign terrorist organization like Samidun, it should sound the alarm for everyone. The infiltration of a foreign terror organization into American life and on our campuses presents a clear threat to our national security. I commend the swift action taken by law enforcement and the University of Washington to arrest the perpetrators. SCN will continue to monitor developments and remain vigilant as we work to keep the Jewish community as safe and secure as possible. Now, mind you, this incident follows SCN's March discovery of a violent protest manual alleged to be from Hamas media office circulating among university students in online forums. This is the same one we reported on ages ago. I mean, I think we reported on this thing in November of 2023. We had this stuff. This is the exact same stuff we've been discussing this entire time. Now, let's go back to October 15th, 2024. So you're talking a year and 8 days after the October 7th attacks. This is a press release from the Treasury Department. Today, in a joint action with Canada, the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control designated the Samidun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, or Samidun, a sham charity that serves as an international fundraiser for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine terrorist organization. The PFLP, which was designated as a foreign terrorist organization and especially designated global terrorist by the U.S. Department of State in October of 1997 and October of 2001, respectively, uses Samidun to maintain fundraising operations in both Europe and North America. Who was president in 97? That's under Bill Clinton. Who was president in October of 2001? That's George
Obama.
Bush. No, not him. Not him. It's George Bush. So this is bipartisan. People call a terrorist. Also designated as Khaled Barakat. He's a member of the PFLP's leadership. Together, Samidun and Barakat play critical roles in external fundraising for the PFLP. Today's action is being taken pursuant to the Counterterrorism Authority Executive Order as amended. This was done under Biden. This was done under Joe Biden. Quote, organizations like Samidun masquerade as charitable actors that claim to provide humanitarian support to those in need, yet in reality divert funds for much-needed assistance to support terrorist group, said Acting Undersecretary of Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Bradley T. Smith. The United States, together with Canada and our like-minded partners, will continue to disrupt those who seek to finance the PFLP, Hamas, and other terror organizations. Canada said that Canada remains committed to working with our key partners and allies like the United States to counter terrorist organizations and their fundraisers. Today's joint action with the U.S. sends a strong message that our two nations will not tolerate this type of activity and will do everything in our power to ensure robust measures are in place to address terrorist financing. So we know this group is a terrorist organization. We know what they do. Do you know who was speaking at the University of Washington today? Bisan Barghouti. Bisan Barghouti is the one who runs Samidun locally. She is the one who organized the rally days after October 7th at the University of Washington. She went on Como News and discussed how they took over the freeway and justified it. And this person was speaking at the University of Washington today. And when I reached out to the University of Washington, they said free speech, free speech. You literally had a terrorist inciting against the U.S. and Israel on campus today. Incitement is not free speech. Also, here's something else. Who's keeping the kids safe the whole time? What, the UW police? UW police are going to stand up to a terrorist organization? Give me a break. This is what is going on the University of Washington campus right under our noses. So why won't we call it terrorism? Where was Bob Ferguson? Bob Ferguson can't even decide if he knows what the definition of terrorism is. This is a guy who has been silent since the vandalism at the University of Washington. Chris Daniels confronted him, as we discussed earlier in the show. Chris Daniels confronted him at his press conference yesterday where he was signing rent control into law. Chris Daniels as much as we make fun of Chris Daniels, and we make fun of Chris Daniels, he has been the only reporter, the only one who has been asking Bob Ferguson about this since he was Attorney General. He had to go hunt down Bob Ferguson to get an answer to this question because Bob Ferguson won't issue a statement on it, won't talk about it, won't do anything about it. By the way, huge kudos to Como News. Huge kudos to Como News, Jeremy Harris, everybody over there, Chris Daniels, because they have been beating this drum like nobody else in town. Como News. I've had so many people reach out to me, not just from the Jewish world, from all the other world, saying Como News has just been killing it the past few months. They've been doing a really, really great job. So maybe I won't make fun of them as part of the mainstream media as much as I used to. They've been doing a great, great job. So when Chris Daniels confronted Bob Ferguson about, hey, well, you condemn all this kind of stuff, you're one of their most notable alumni, what did Bob Ferguson say?
Do you believe that that was a case of domestic terrorism? And are you concerned at all about the Department of Education and their probe into anti-Semitism at the University of Washington?
I'm happy to take your question after we take questions on the housing.
Washington Governor Bob Ferguson, initially reluctant to enter the debate about his alma mater, did say he believed the violent protesters would be held accountable.
Whether something meets the definition of domestic terrorism, I don't know exactly what that definition is, but this is obviously a serious situation.
As far as the probe from the Department of Education,
the federal government is investigating just about everybody these days. Okay, so it's not especially unusual.
So let's walk that back for a second. Let's start at the end first. Oh, the federal government's just investigating everybody these days. Ah, Trump. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Trump. That's Trump derangement syndrome right there. You literally had terrorists destroying a building at your alma mater. There's an investigation into anti-Semitism. Oh, right, I forgot you've always been silent on anti-Semitism. Always. You allowed this stuff to continue as Attorney General. You didn't care about this stuff at all. If it was white supremacists on campus, you'd be there with a camera crew. You'd be there with every news station in town to shut it down personally. And you didn't do that because you're a coward. Or worse yet, you're complicit, just like we discussed yesterday. So you say you don't know the definition of domestic terrorism? Why is that? Oh, because Bob Ferguson has his domestic violent extremism. He has redefined the term to include Republicans, conservatives, anybody he disagrees with for his hate crimes task force. That's why he doesn't want to define it, because he wants it to only include them and not include the Hamasniks on campus, not include Antifa. Have we had some massive problem with right-wing extremists in Washington state the past 5-6 years? No. What have we had instead? Antifa, BLM, Hamas. Everybody's on the left, and they don't even get a mention at this hate crimes task force. Hey, tomorrow, this hate crimes task force is having another meeting. That's tomorrow. You think they're going to mention what happened at University of Washington? Or you think they're going to talk about combating disinformation, combating misinformation? What can we do to shut down talk radio and podcasters? That's what they're going to focus on. What can we do to shut down the Republican Party? Meanwhile, they have terrorists on campus. Let's remember, Bob Ferguson always dodges the questions on this. Chris Daniels, to his credit, did this when Bob Ferguson was running for office.
You're a distinguished alumni at the University of Washington. You are the top prosecutor in the state. You want to be the governor. You know what's going on at the UW over the last couple of weeks. If you're elected governor, what would you do to find a solution there to make everybody happy?
Have a chat with you separately. I have a very specific focus here. I just will say, look, as a graduate, all students have the absolute right to attend classes safely and experience a campus environment safely. That's fundamental. That has to be enforced. And so, but happy to have a further conversation with you about other details. But for right now, our focus is very clear, right, on what's in front of us. And that is the fundamentals of our voting system.
By the way, do you know what press conference that one was? That was when 3 guys named Bob Ferguson decided to run for governor. And Bob Ferguson threatened to weaponize the full power at his disposal to go after them. Oh, the irony. Bob Ferguson won't do that for the Gaza encampment. He won't do that for Hamasniks who destroy over $1 million worth of equipment at a building. But he'll do it to get himself elected. Yeah. Complicit? I think so. Do you remember when the Seattle Times was asking Bob Ferguson during his endorsement meeting? This is a little long clip, but I want you to listen to this word salad nonsense that Bob Ferguson gave. Bob Ferguson is usually very, very clear, very, very succinct. He doesn't know how to answer this question without getting in trouble. We'll explain why after you hear it.
Well, ask about one of your clients, but asking obviously as a candidate, it was the University of Washington and the protests we're seeing on campus there. Some say the encampments are an example of protected free speech, and others say that it's clearly posted no camping, and that's state law, and it wasn't enforced, and that's the problem. Where do you see that?
Yeah, I'm concerned about even just the recent vandalism, right? And the vandalism some weeks ago at the Hub, for example, right, where overnight there was significant vandalism there. Concerned about the impact on, let me start from the baseline. All students should be able, I went to the University of Washington, all students should be able to access their classes and the campus and move freely about the campus without any fear of harassments, threats, you name it. So that's baseline, right? And your point is, well, of course there are free speech rights, of course, right? But there are limits to free speech, right?
We're going to stop right there for a second. You notice what Bob Ferguson's saying every 3 seconds? Right, 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 right. That's a tick. That's a nervous tick. You don't normally hear him talking like that. He is stalling, word salading, and doesn't know how to answer.
There are limits to all of our constitutional rights. You pick it, right? There are limits to that.
Oh, wait a second. There are limits to constitutional rights? Well, now we know what he does with guns.
And so that right can't be infringing on me as a student to move about campus. And so, look, from my standpoint, that's the baseline. That's what needs to be enforced. And I think if I'm a governor, what I'd be doing is, and I don't know the governor has his own conversation, so I'm not saying this is not happening. I want to be very clear. I'm saying that if I was the governor, obviously you're having conversations with President Kelsey, right, and the Board of Regents and folks there, and making sure that they understand we're available to be of assistance in whatever way is appropriate. But that's the baseline, and I think that's the direction I'd be moving as governor.
To clarify, the baseline would be enforcement of the no camping law? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think what you'd have to decide is, hey, is what's going on the ground with those encampments, is that interfering, right, with students attending their classes, and are those encampments contributing to the vandalism that's going on, right? That is an escalation. What happened 2 nights ago, I think, if I got my nights right, 2 nights ago. That's an escalation of what's going on there, clearly, right? And what happened at the Hub is totally unacceptable. So that's the balance, right? Is you've got, yes, you want to, campus protests have been going on for a long time. You want to respect students' right to articulate those things. But when you move to vandalism, when you move to threats to students, unacceptable, right? So it's not an easy balance. It's why universities are grappling with this all across the country. But that's the baseline that I'd operate from.
So then why didn't you do anything about it? Why? Because Bob Ferguson is indebted to CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations. They pay for his campaign. They honored him at their dinner. Why did they honor him at their dinner? Because he's the lawyer who fought Trump on the so-called Muslim ban, which wasn't a Muslim ban. Do you remember what this thing actually was? It said, we don't want people coming in from countries in the Middle East that we don't have relations with, so we can't verify who they are, because we want to make sure that we don't have terrorists coming into the country. So what they did was temporarily stop refugees, immigration from countries like Iran, Iraq, Yemen. Gee, we don't have problems with any of those countries now, do we? And that was back in what, 2017? Bob Ferguson got an award for stopping Donald Trump from securing our borders against terrorists in the Middle East. That is who Bob Ferguson is indebted to. Cowardice or complicity? I think it's not cowardice. I think it's complicity. The cowardice is he doesn't want to admit who he's complicit with. But it is very clear to me that he is complicit with these groups that are targeting Jews on campus, because his donors are the people whose kids that these people are on campus. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I reached out to the University of Washington and said, you have Sami Dune on your campus. They're speaking there right now. University of Washington said, well, everybody gets free speech. Really? Terrorist organizations? Who's protecting the kids from the terrorist organizations? That's what I'm asking right now. And you guys didn't think everybody got free speech when the college Republicans did their events. You shut that down all the time. You guys tried to shut that down all the time. So it's selective enforcement of what you want. Yesterday, we were discussing whether or not University of Washington should continue to get federal funding. And we were more forgiving yesterday, right, Mike? We were way more forgiving. But a lot of us were saying we have to have cautious optimism. And today, University of Washington showed that the first chance they get to go back to doing what they were doing, they will do it. You think these kids are actually going to end up charged and prosecuted? Or you think University of Washington is going to do what they did last December? In December of 2024, I want you to remember, that is when, 2023. December of 2023, there was a Hanukkah party on campus. And these lunatics took over the administration building. And they were arrested, and they were taken out of the building. And University of Washington didn't press charges. And University of Washington didn't suspend them or take any disciplinary action. Remember with the encampment on campus, even though they got hit with multiple Title VI, Title IX violations and lawsuits, University of Washington did not take any action against the campers. What did they do instead? They gave them every single demand that they wanted. I'm sorry, I'm not as forgiving as I was yesterday. It is time to defund the University of Washington. I will be emailing all of this to the Trump administration tonight. The people we've made friends with, like Julia Hartman, whose interview you can see on KVI.com that we did yesterday, like Harmeet Dillon. I'm going to send all of this to them as soon as I am off air today, because I've had it. I've absolutely had it. I was willing to give University of Washington the benefit of the doubt. No more. No more. Give us a call or a text. Let us know what you think. Are you still as forgiving? I especially want to hear from the people yesterday that were in our boat that said, okay, how do we do this over time? 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. The Supreme Court of the United States overrides a woke Seattle judge. We'll tell you what the case was when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and 2 tickets to see Bryan Adams at Climate Pledge Arena. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So, I was perusing the interwebs, and I happened upon Jay Inslee's Twitter account.
Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
What is Jay Inslee all excited about? He's got a post on Twitter. To save democracy, something we take too much for granted, every segment of society now needs to stand up and be counted. Every law firm and every university must answer that call. It's starting to happen. We need to pick up the pace. Is he calling for violence at universities? I mean, he's clearly calling for every law firm to sue the Trump administration. But what's the university thing? Does he want more violence? This is the guy who did nothing about what was going on at University of Washington. And don't forget, he's an alum there too. Nothing at all. So he wrote an article for The Guardian. Okay, first of all, The Guardian is a far-left rag. So here's what it says. Also, it doesn't say former Governor Jay Inslee. It says Governor Jay Inslee. This is a new article. The headline is, Why is America Sleeping as Autocracy Approaches? The country's future depends on law firms, universities, and media companies, as well as everyday Americans breaking their silence. Funny. This from the guy who tried to regulate our speech? This from the guy whose office was censoring us, literally reporting what we were saying on this show to social media companies to have it taken down. He said, when a woman asked me a couple weeks ago why leaders were not standing up to Donald Trump, my thoughts went immediately to political leaders. When I started to answer, she corrected me and said, no. I'm talking about college presidents and law firms. Where the heck are they? Well, maybe they're dealing with Hamas activists on campus. Maybe they're dealing with Antifa. You know, Jay, like you never did? Jay Inslee didn't call in the National Guard to break up the Gaza encampment. He didn't call in the National Guard to break up the autonomous zone. I think that when Jay Inslee was asked about the Gaza encampment, he said the same thing as what he said regarding the autonomous zone. Well, that's news to me, right? Where indeed, from all observations, most people have been asleep as the U.S. president dismantles democracy piece by jeweled piece. What is he talking about? You want to talk about dismantling democracy? Weren't you the one who had emergency powers for 975 days, for over 2 years? You were a dictator. You were a tyrant in Washington, and whatever you said went. Who the hell are you to be talking about democracy? Give me a break. He says they are cutting sweet little deals on their knees, are just remaining silent as the fruits of 250 years of national... Stop. I can't. How many businesses closed because of Jay Inslee? How many people went out of business because of Jay Inslee? How many people lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods because of Jay Inslee? How many people turned to drugs and alcoholism and depression and suicide because of Jay Inslee? How many kids missed out on education because of Jay Inslee? I cannot think of a more destructive person in Washington than Jay Inslee. He really was the most destructive person, and now he's trying to double down on that. The absolute hypocrisy or tone deafness of this guy saying he's protecting democracy when he had emergency powers for 975 days, spare me. Just spare me. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Steve in Auburn. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, you asked us to call you about what our decisions on compromise for the University of Washington were. I was coming to, update you. I was like, I was right. I said they were going to be a turncoat. They're going to just do this little concession, make people think everything's all fine, and then they're going to turn right around on stuff, just like I said. And they did. They did. And what are we going to do to them? Is anyone going to go to jail? Is anyone going to be fined? Is anyone going to actually take responsibility for this kind of behavior being allowed again and again and again for what is honestly becoming domestic terrorism?
It's not becoming. It is domestic terrorism. I completely
It is
agree with you.
domestic terrorism, yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Exactly.
In fact, take out the word domestic. Take out the word domestic. Terrorism is terrorism. It doesn't care if it's domestic or foreign. It's just terrorism. So at this point, we know what it is. And at this point, we have to count on the feds to help us out. I am sending every single bit of this to the Trump administration tonight as soon as I am off the air. That is what I'm doing tonight.
As you should, because right now, I don't think enough people actually realize that this is what's going on, that this is actually what this definition needs to be placed on this kind of stuff, because it is. We are being terrorized by our own people, our own children. Now, this isn't something that we should see in our country. We should be united as a country. Yes, we may have differences. Yes, we may have opinions about certain things, but we shouldn't be influencing our children with foreign nationals, with foreign ideas, with foreign political agendas to do all these things.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane, Steve. And you know what? I know a lot of people yesterday were willing to give a little bit benefit of the doubt, but were really, really skeptical. And look what happened less than 24 hours later, because it was around the same time yesterday. The same time yesterday, we got news that they were suspending all those students. It's not even 24 hours. And immediately we have this turnaround. Appreciate the call, Steve. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate your hard-hitting words. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, the Barstool Sports Odyssey continues with the latest insanity with Dave Portnoy and this Hamasnik who got caught at his bar in a viral video. We'll give you the details on that, plus more of your calls, more of your texts. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. And don't forget, if you missed the show live on air, you can always get the podcast at whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, head on over there, rate, subscribe, and share. Also, you can watch the show. You can see this beautiful face and this receding hairline over on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, over on X. The text line ain't happy. The peasants are revolting. No, I'm just kidding. You guys are not peasants. But a lot of the people who yesterday were saying give UW a chance feel scorned. And a lot of the people who are saying, yeah, UW defund everything yesterday are feeling vindicated, saying, yes, look at all this. So, for example, here's Steve. Steve says, hi, Ari. Steve from Shoreline here. Your response from UW about the woman terrorist was completely ludicrous. So I guess Adolf Hitler wanted to speak on supporting the murder of Jews. That would be free speech too? Steve, you raise a great point. If the KKK was standing in the middle of campus, what would they call it? Hate speech. If Donald Trump supporters were standing in the middle of campus, what do they call it? Hate speech. Don't forget, our friend Olivia Krolchek got shut down from speaking 3 months ago. 3 months ago. Then she files a civil rights complaint. Boom. Now they allow her to speak on campus. Exactly. Florence says over on the text line, I'm in total agreement with you, Ari. The UW needs to have severe consequences. Yes. Lee says, shut them down. Yeah, everybody basically here is saying the exact same thing. We were willing to give a chance yesterday, or some of you weren't. We were willing to give a chance yesterday. Now nobody wants to. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Michael in Snohomish. Michael, what's going on?
Yeah, yesterday in reference to the university, people had some great ideas. One I missed, though, was the people who got arrested. We will drop the charges if you tell us what's the name of the staff member you had contact with.
Oh, so I don't even think we need to go that far. I'll tell you why. Today at the University of Washington, during those speeches, they were reading letters from faculty. Now, the question is, why weren't the faculty members there? I haven't listened to the audio yet because I've been online. I've been on air, excuse me. We're going to check those tonight. But were these anonymous letters just signed UW faculty, random UW faculty member? Because then you're using these kids as pawns? You're sending them out there to do your dirty work for you? Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. So, Michael, we're going to check that tonight. We're going to listen to that tonight. That's exactly what we're probably going to find out. Where are all these professors? None of them have the guts to come out like they did in the encampment. A few of them did. Are any of them going to come out now? No, because they know as soon as their face goes viral, they're done. Absolutely done. Michael, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of going viral, so this whole odyssey with Dave Portnoy and this kid named Mo Khan from Temple University. For those of you who haven't followed this whole thing, it's the biggest story on the internet and just keeps going and going and going. Let's catch you up. So over the weekend, what happens at one of the Barstool actual bars that they have? They're not just an online site covering sports and men's stuff. They also have bars. What happened? They have this shtick where you can have signs brought to your table with lettering on them. So one kid named Mo Khan had signage brought to his table that said F the Jews. And it went viral. And Dave Portnoy, the owner of Barstool Sports, not only is he Jewish, but he doesn't put up with any of this nonsense. So he fired the waitresses, and he calls these kids. And initially, the kids are crying and sad, and he offers them a trip to see the concentration camps in Poland. Well, then they lawyer up, and they say, nope, we're not doing it. They refuse to do it. So now what's happening is, on their PR tour, after more anti-Semitism in their social media feeds have been exposed, in their PR tour, they decide to go on Stu Peters' show. Stu Peters, who's an actual raging far-right white supremacist anti-Semite. You go on his show to redeem your image?
It's been really hectic, but I'm keeping up and holding my ground as far as I can.
You know, we talk a lot about Jewish supremacy on this program. You're an innocent man, but over the past few days, this disgusting Jew has internationally destroyed your reputation. He's threatened you. He's threatened your family. He's had your scholarship to Temple University revoked.
Okay, we're stopping right there. We're stopping right there. That's a white supremacist. That's an actual white supremacist. Oh, found one. Don't see him that often. This kid then set up his own GoFundMe to raise his own legal funds.
I know that the sign was provocative because it reminded people a lot of the unjust things that Israel is doing around the world.
Wait a second. The sign that says F the Jews reminds you of the... Did you have ChatGPT write this stupidity for you? It really sounds like you did. It really does.
He would almost be able to say that if it said F Israel.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. It says the Jews. So what's happening now? I love this last night. That post got hit with the community notes, which called it complete BS because it was complete BS. The question is, are they going to keep this fundraiser going? And I love how he asks in the fundraiser for money to relocate. Money to relocate? What is this? You want a new house? You want everybody to pay for your stuff? And people actually give to this stupidity. He's on a tour talking about how he's not an anti-Semite on an anti-Semite's website. He's saying F the Jews. He's doubling down on everything he's done. And then woe is me, woe is me. Dude, take the L. You should have just taken the free trip to Poland. You might have had a good time with Dave Portnoy. You could have fixed all of this. I don't like these free trips to Holocaust centers or any of that. I say don't give the anti-Semites ideas. Dude, you had an easy way out of this. Don't make the sign in the first place.
Conversely, though, we're not advocating for any devils here. So, I mean, let me make that clear. But, like, you've seen me post about this on my Twitter at Mike on KVI. I understand that Dave Portnoy is understandably upset. This is something that happened in his establishment and went scorched earth, found the perpetrators, fired the waitresses. But, like, as folks that have worked for establishments like that, there's other levels of management.
Yes.
Where's the shift manager? Where's the bar manager? You know, I don't know how many levels of management there are, but it seems like Dave Portnoy has stopped with the waitresses and this guy. I've heard nothing about any other level of accountability. And I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory or anything, but it kind of smells to me. So it's weird.
I had the same issue. I heard Dave Portnoy talking the other day, and he was talking about how he immediately called the manager and the shift manager in one of those videos. Now, I wonder if this is a case because we were discussing this. Mike, we've both worked in the food service industry, the hairnet industry, the name tag industry, if you shall. You know what happens when it's crazy, when it's absolutely crazy, and the manager's dealing with this and somebody else is dealing with that. And he was talking about the trainings they've done, and they go, this is against our trainings. This is what we've done. I wonder if the manager just didn't even realize it because they were too busy with whatever else. And maybe Dave Portnoy gave the manager a pass because the manager said, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again. Maybe. Because what he said about the waitresses were he called them to talk to them, and one of them was in the middle of a dance class and said, can I call you back? And he said, no, I'm your boss. We're going to talk right now. And she said, no, I want to finish my dance class. Perhaps it's about the boss is calling. We do what the boss says. And you know what? For a private company, you can do that. I agree with you, Mike. There's a level of accountability at middle management that seems to be skipped here. But going with what we know about Dave Portnoy, it seems like if you say, yes, I'm sorry, he's going to give you a second chance. And he said that before. And my guess is management, middle management, every management said sorry. And these are the people who didn't. Because don't forget, when the kid said he was sorry, he was getting a free trip to Poland.
That is true. Yeah.
Right?
Well, and like you said, Ari, you know, Dave Portnoy, very much into accountability. And, you know, I stand convinced perhaps there was some kind of contrition somewhere along the way. But yeah, like I said, just it felt like that aspect of it was underreported for my taste.
Yes, it should have been from the beginning one. I understand Dave Portnoy was mad, but it should have been, hey, I called the manager, and here's what the manager said. That's what got on your radar, Mike, was that part was missing from the story. Totally with you on that. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to Bryan Adams, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, Mike found this story from the New York Post that a highly anticipated Metallica concert at Virginia Tech's Lane Stadium wasn't just a performance, it was a seismic event. For Hokies, that's the name of their team, the Hokies?
Yeah, it's a nickname.
I see. The opening chords of Enter Sandman have long been an electrifying and familiar soundtrack at football games, igniting synchronized surge of jumping and cheering. This beloved tradition reached unprecedented levels Wednesday night in Blacksburg as the estimated 60,000-strong crowd's collective energy remarkably culminated in unusual seismic readings. The Virginia Tech Seismological Observatory recorded ground tremors generated by the concert's immense energy. The peak coincided precisely with the band's iconic performance of Enter Sandman. You can actually see it on the seismograph.
I've actually got some audio here if you'll allow me a moment
sure.
here.
Let's do it.
It's a chant. That's why we're doing it. So that's James Hetfield, lead singer, says, "Let's go." The crowd comes back with the Hokies.
And this
they
is the
start
theme song
into
at the
it,
stadium. Yeah.
and they just start going nuts. Like, they play this for Virginia Tech football games. It's basically like their theme song. So the real band comes to their stadium to play their song. 66,000 Hokies just going nuts during this thing.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome. Man, that would have been an awesome show. Metallica always puts on an awesome show. When I saw him here in Seattle. When you saw him here in Seattle.
Yeah, scarred for life for my troubles. But yeah, no, it's pretty great. Pretty great.
Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 2 tickets to Brian Adams at Climate Pledge Arena. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 wins a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial, and 2 tickets to Brian Adams at Climate Pledge Arena. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You are listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.